Hey, so in this video we'll be writing and using getter methods. I'll tell you what a getter method is. We'll explain why we never access these member variables that we have over here directly. We will initialize these member variables with these numbers on the end, and then I will be showing you how to access things like the maximum tries using the getMaxTries, and we'll actually implement the getMaxTries getter so that we can, for a given game, for example, get the tries, put it in an integer, and then tell the user which try number they're on. Try 1, enter your guess, etc. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. Let's dive in and make it happen. So we want to start moving some of the things that we've got in the main CPP, or at least this number of turns, into the class. Because look, we've already got myMaxTries. So any given instance of the game, like this, player 1 game, or actually I'm going to rename it. Let's rename it just BC game again. It's okay to change your mind about names. You must feel comfortable with them. So here's an instance of a game called BC game, and that particular game has a max tries. Look, BC game, dot, and when we hit the dot, look, we get all the methods that we defined over here. And one of those is getMaxTries. So let's do that, getMaxTries. And that, of course, is what we're trying to talk about here in terms of number of turns. So, is getMaxTries implemented yet? Let's go have a look. Right-click it. You can go to definition. If you're confused about definition and declaration, remember that definition is, think about high definition, okay? It's more defined than something that's just declared. So it's the definition we want to go to. The declaration, of course, would take us to the header file. The definition takes us to the CPP. So from here, the methods of this class are allowed to access its private parts, but nothing else from the outside is. So from here, I can go return myMaxTries, which is fine. So now, when I try doing this, it should spit out the right value. Let's try it. Let's just say int maxTries equals bcgame.getMaxTries. Why am I doing that? I'm just trying to make my life a bit simpler in here. I'm going to put less than or equal to maxTries and get rid of this constant. So this is pretty clear what this does. It instantiates a new game, goes and finds out how many tries the game's got, and then goes around a loop based on the number of tries. Now, temporarily, let's output the number of tries, because we may have an interesting effect here. MaxTries, end line. So we have written already something called a getter. Oh, we're not using the standard namespace. Drat, why did I make that decision? I think it's good to be able to work both ways. So we're going to see out the maxTries. Let's have a look, see what happens. Oh, minus 8,000, or wait, lots, billions or whatever it is. Wow, that's a funny number. Now, why is it a funny number? Why is this maxTries so strange? The code is really simple. It's returning the maxTries. Because look, we never initialize the maxTries here when we declare it. Now, for now, let's initialize it in here. Let's initialize maxTries to 5, right where we declare it. Now, this is appropriate. To initialize here is fine, but of course you can't change it. Well, you can't change the initialization of it at runtime. If in the future we want to make another game or reset the game somehow, we may need to do this somewhere else in something called the constructor. But for now, let's just do it here. Let's rerun. Control F5. Ah, that hasn't worked. Or has it now? This is where I want to suggest you don't completely trust compilers. Visual Studio is playing up here. I have definitely initialized. I have definitely saved my header file, right? There's no star on it. And it is not behaving. So to make it behave, it just hasn't noticed this change. It's just being silly. It turns out if I put something up here, like a comment, notice me, I'm significant, like that, and then do Control F5 again, then all's right with the world. We're back to 5, okay? So you can either hack around till you solve it, or you could do this. You could go to build and rebuild Bull Cow Game, rebuilding the project. You could rebuild the entire solution, which would be all the projects. We've only got one project. But if you get into a situation where you think, look, this really should have worked, then I'm afraid, sorry, even if you're a beginner, you cannot always completely trust compilers. So in a situation like that, trust your gut and say, well, rebuild the project to start with. And that will now work. 5 is the number of tries, okay? So just before I throw you into a challenge, I want to set you up to win. I'm going to, in a minute, ask you to do something very similar to this, but inside the getGets method. And I'm going to ask you to put in, before the guess, the try number that we're currently on, so people know how many more guesses they've got. So that's all fine, but you're going to be doing something very similar to this, but what I don't want you doing is creating a new game instance. So I'm going to move this line in main CPP under play game. I'm going to take that and put it right at the top of the method, around there. It doesn't really matter where it is, but the point is that it's gone leftwards one tab. It's at a higher scope. Okay, it's available now to all of these methods. It's not inside any particular method. It's not in that block. It's not in this block anymore. So now it's become more global. Now, global in general is a bad thing. Putting things in what we call a global scope is a bad thing. But global access to this game instance is absolutely fine. We have a main loop here, and this is the game manager, if you like. And of course it needs access to a game. We're going to have a single instance of a game. We're going to keep resetting the same thing rather than making new games, which is going to reset the game. So we do want access to it everywhere. That's fine. So there it is, and then you get access to it in Play Game. Now you will be able to get access to it inside Get Guess as well. So you'll be able to do something very similar to this. Cool. Let's dive into the challenge. So I want you to implement Get Current Try. Initialize the value to 1 in the header file for now. Check it works by printing the try from Get Guess. For example, I want it to say try 1, enter your guess. It doesn't need to update each guess, that's fine, where 1 is the value of my current try. So go ahead, pause the video and give that a go now. Okay, welcome back. So here we are in Get Guess. We're going to need to do something very similar. Nothing wrong with cutting and pasting your code. So int current try. Equals get current try. Okay, that's fine. So we go off and get the current try. Now, straight away, check that that is implemented. Get current try is not. So you're going to need to return my current try. Great. Another thing you're going to need to do is go off and initialize it. So that was working backwards. Let's try working forwards. When the game object was created at the top of main CPP here, it gave itself 2 private member variables, my current try and my max tries, and initialized them to 1 and 5 respectively. The implementation just says get max tries does that, get current try does that. Really simple. By the way, you'll often see getters written like this. Let's do that. People often just take a load of the fluff out, and remembering that compilers ignore white space, apart from the certain white space, obviously between keywords and inside strings, but most white space is ignored. So there's something to be said for this. In fact, there's something to be said for putting your 2 getters right at the top of the implementation. So you've got your 2 getters, and then you go into all your methods. All right, just to tidy up, but that syntax is common, and I quite like it. So we, down here, have gone and got our current try. There we go. Now what I want to do is just modify this to say try. And then we're going to need to close the quotes, put in the current try, and then do something like that. Okay, and a dot and a space. Try, grab the current try and enter it. Let's try. See what happens. Try 1, enter your guess. Try 1, try 1, try 1. Great, do you want to play again? No. Now, we're not yet updating the try, and that's because that's a more advanced thing we haven't even done yet. We haven't even got a submit guess method, and it's the submit guess method that is going to be updating that try for us, okay? We need to make sure we submit valid guesses. We're not going to penalize people for putting rubbish in when we finally check this input. So this is all I wanted you to do. Well done getting this far. We've written a couple of getters now for the first time, and there they are implemented. And in the next video, we're going to talk about a keyword called const, which is going to protect us from doing anything naughty inside these functions that are supposed to just return values. We're going to make sure that's enforced. See you soon.